Imagine strolling into a luxurious jewelry store, only to be met with judgmental stares and condescending whispers, yet little do they know, you're the very person who helps keep that place running. Intrigued? Wondering how such a scenario could unfold, and more importantly, how it might end? Keep watching, because this gripping story centers on Keanu Reeves, a surprising turn of events, and a powerful lesson in humility and kindness. Now, let me ask you, have you ever felt like people sized you up based on appearances? Or have you witnessed someone stand up for what's right in the face of unfair treatment? We'll dive into all of that and more in today's video. Where are you watching from? Share in the comments below, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one. Welcome to Motivation for Success, your go-to channel for transforming everyday moments into life-changing insights. If heartfelt stories and valuable lessons resonate with you, be sure to subscribe right now and never miss another inspiring tale. The automatic doors of Everdale Court parted with a subtle whoosh, revealing an opulent world bathed in soft golden light. Marble floors reflected every passing figure like a polished mirror. Glass storefronts curved gracefully along the walkways, and grand chandeliers hung from a ceiling so lofty it could have passed for a midnight sky. The faint scent of expensive fragrances and freshly ground coffee mingled in the air, creating an atmosphere of both indulgence and exclusivity. Amid this luxe backdrop stood Keanu Reeves, dressed in wearing a black leather jacket. His long hair, slightly tousled, brushed his shoulders, and a neatly trimmed beard framed his calm, observant face. He seemed so understated in this realm of designer labels and lofty price tags, a quiet presence among the glitz. As he moved through the atrium, his footsteps echoing softly on the marble, several onlookers cast wary glances in his direction. A smartly dressed woman in a tailored suit clutched her purse a little closer as she passed him. Two sales associates, standing at the entrance of a luxury clothing store, broke into hushed whispers as their curious eyes followed him. Keanu was no stranger to such reactions. He neither shrank from them nor engaged with them. Instead, his expression remained a mask of calm neutrality. He had come here with a purpose, he needed to find a gift for someone close to his heart, and he refused to let others' judgments derail him. "I'll just find what I need and leave," he thought quietly. "I'm here for something more important than their opinions." At the far end of Everdale Court, a shimmering storefront caught his eye, opal crown jewels. Through its broad windows, he could see display cases bathed in soft spotlights, each one holding pieces of sparkling wonder, necklaces with glimmering stones, bracelets encrusted with gems, and watches that seemed to glow with an otherworldly allure. It was evident that prices here were rarely displayed because if you needed to ask, you likely couldn't afford them. Keanu approached the store, hands tucked casually into his leather pockets. His stride was slow and measured, as though he were taking in every detail of the mall's architecture. As he crossed the threshold into opal crown jewels, the atmosphere shifted immediately. The lighting inside was warmer, enveloping visitors in an amber glow, but there was still a tangible sense of exclusivity that hung in the air. Behind a counter made of glass and polished oak stood a young saleswoman wearing a sleek black dress. Her hair was pulled back into a neat chignon, and she presented a professional demeanor. Nonetheless, the moment her eyes landed on Keanu, her polite smile faltered ever so slightly, the corners of her mouth growing taut. Standing to the side was the store's manager, a middle-aged man in a tailored gray suit. Mr. Lowen, as he was known, exuded a certain guarded composure that carried traces of arrogance. He cast a quick, assessing glance at Keanu, from the scuffed boots to the plain leather jacket, before his lips curled into a faintly disapproving line. "Good afternoon, sir," the young saleswoman greeted, her voice carefully measured. "Is there something I can help you find today?" Keanu gave a friendly nod and replied in a low, steady tone, "Just taking a look around for now." Before the saleswoman could respond, Mr. Lowen stepped forward, positioning himself between the counter and Keanu. His voice had a practiced, velvety quality laced with condescension. "We value our clientele's time and privacy here at Opal Crown Jewels," he said, letting the words hang in the air. "We kindly ask that only serious buyers handle our merchandise. If you're just browsing, we might need to run a few checks, credit checks, that is. Company policy." The unspoken message was clear. He was assessing Keanu as someone who didn't belong in a store of such high caliber. Nearby, a couple, dressed in matching designer outfits, paused their perusal of a diamond ring to watch the interaction. They exchanged amused glances, entertained by this drama. Keanu, ever composed, barely batted an eye. He sensed the tension rolling off Mr. Lowen. Over the years, Keanu had weathered far deeper storms than a little social snobbery. He had lost people dear to him, grappled with heartbreak and adversity. A dismissive attitude from a store manager was mild by comparison. "Thank you for explaining," he said, voice smooth and unwavering. Without another word, he turned and made his way to the exit. Behind him, Mr. Lowen gave a quiet, smug chuckle, audible enough for the staff to catch. "Some people simply don't understand their place," he murmured, loud enough to be overheard but phrased as if it were a private remark. A few sales associates forced polite smiles, unwilling to contradict their superior. Stepping back into the main walkway of Everdale Court, Keanu sensed the cool breath of air conditioning that seemed to carry a frosty vibe of materialism. The posh environment that had once sparkled with possibility felt distant now, overshadowed by the memory of Mr. Lowen's sneer. Still, Keanu held on to his composure. He wandered past boutiques filled with designer garments and high-end electronics, each shining with a carefully orchestrated glitz meant to attract only the wealthiest patrons. Shoppers carried sleek bags from exclusive brands, their strides confident, their eyes rarely straying to those who weren't dressed like them. Yet amidst this sea of extravagance, a quieter scene caught Keanu's attention. Near a central fountain that arched crystal-clear water into the air, an older janitor methodically cleaned the floors. His back was slightly stooped, and lines of concentration were etched into his forehead as he maneuvered a battered mop. It was evident he took great pride in his work, ensuring the mall's grandeur remained unblemished for its many visitors. As Keanu walked by, their eyes briefly met. The janitor gave him a small nod, a silent acknowledgement that was neither forced nor pretentious. It was the simple kindness of one working man recognizing another human being without judgment. Keanu returned the nod. In that single exchange, he felt an invisible thread of understanding pass between them. A few hours later, in a part of Everdale Court that most shoppers never glimpsed, a boardroom awaited. Long and polished, the mahogany tables sat beneath recessed lighting that gave the space an aura of quiet power. Portraits of the mall's major investors lined the walls, and plush leather chairs surrounded the table, each occupied by influential figures who steered the mall's operations. They spoke in hushed, urgent voices about financial forecasts, upcoming promotional events, and the overall reputation of Everdale Court, a place that prided itself on attracting luxury brands and high-paying clientele. At the head of the table stood Ms. Harland, the operations director, known for her cool logic and high professional standards. Seated along the edge was Mr. Lowen, looking unusually pale. He stared at his hands as if the lines on his palms contained some dire prophecy. Across from him, standing calmly, was Keanu Reeves. In the hush that blanketed the room, Keanu took a measured breath and placed his palms flat on the table. His gaze lingered on each board member before it finally settled on Mr. Lowen. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Keanu began quietly, his voice calm yet resonant. "But I want to make something clear. I invested in this mall with the intent of creating a space that was welcoming to all, families looking to grab a meal, students studying in the coffee shop, even folks who just need a place to stretch their legs for a bit." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "Luxury is fine, but so is decency. What happened to me in that jewelry store today runs counter to the vision I had for Everdale Court." Several board members exchanged uneasy glances. They knew about Keanu's involvement but had never witnessed such a direct confrontation from him. Ms. Harland cleared her throat, clearly uncomfortable. Mr. Reeves, we had no idea you were treated that way, she said softly. We want to assure you that this is not how we conduct business. Keanu inclined his head politely. I appreciate that. However, the issue isn't just me. It's about the culture being cultivated here. Every patron who steps inside these doors should be shown respect. Whether they're wearing a $1,000 suit or a simple leather jacket, it should make no difference. Mr. Lowen shifted in his chair, a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead. Unable to contain the tension, he finally spoke up. This was a misunderstanding, he said, voice trembling slightly. My staff and I simply follow store policy. We need to protect our merchandise, you understand. Keanu's gaze pinned him. I do. But was it really just policy? Or was it an assumption that someone in plain clothes couldn't possibly afford what you're selling? Silence. The cornered manager opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. After a heavy pause, Miss Harland broke the silence. Effective. Immediately, she began, her tone steady and formal, we are terminating your position, Mr. Lowen. Your approach to customer service does not align with Everdale Court's values that Mr. Reeves and our board want to uphold. A murmur rippled around the table. Some board members looked relieved, others uneasy. Mr. Lowen stared at Keanu in disbelief, unable to muster a defense. There was none to be found. Keanu offered no triumphant smirk, no taunting remark. Instead, he turned toward one of the store associates who sat near the end of the table, a young man wearing a neat shirt and tie who appeared to be in his mid-20s. The name on his ID badge read Josh. Josh, Keanu said gently, you seemed uncomfortable when your manager tried to dismiss me. I noticed you started to say something, but you held back. Josh swallowed and gave a humble nod. Yes, sir. I recognized you, and I knew that the way Mr. Lowen was acting wasn't right. But I was afraid to speak up. Keanu offered a reassuring smile. Fear is understandable. It's not easy to go against someone in charge. But it's important to do what's right. Let your integrity guide you. He glanced at Ms. Harland. I propose we give Josh a bigger role at Opal Crown Jewels, assistant manager, perhaps. Someone who understands the importance of dignity and respect. Josh's eyes widened with surprise, a blend of excitement and gratitude shining through. Thank you. I won't let you down, he said softly. Ms. Harland gave a curt nod of approval. Absolutely. We'll make the necessary arrangements. Josh, congratulations on your new position. With that, the meeting drew to a close, the tension in the room gradually lifting. As people began to disperse, board members murmured about how the day had taken a dramatic turn. Some admired Keanu for his composed manner in dealing with adversity, while others reflected on whether their own management practices needed revisiting. When Keanu re-entered the main concourse of Everdale Court, the bustle of the mall was at its late afternoon peak. Shoppers carried glossy bags, some balancing cups of coffee while juggling phone calls. A few recognized Keanu from earlier and whispered among themselves. But their curiosity was tempered by a newfound respect, a hushed awe at the man who had just demonstrated real power by standing up for inclusivity and kindness. He made his way back toward the central fountain, where the older janitor was once again diligently sweeping. The man paused, blinking in surprise as Keanu approached. You work hard, Keanu said in a warm tone. I've been watching you take care of this place. It looks beautiful. The janitor glanced around at the pristine floors and the dancing arcs of water in the fountain. Just doing my job, he replied, his voice carrying the modest pride of someone who found purpose in what he did. Making sure people can enjoy their time here. Keanu reached into his leather jacket pocket, withdrew a small envelope, and pressed it gently into the janitor's hand. What's this? The older man asked, confusion and curiosity mingling in his eyes. A thank you, said Keanu simply, a hint of a smile on his face. The janitor carefully opened the envelope. His eyes widened upon seeing the generous check inside. He looked up, voice wavering with emotion. "I can't accept this. It's too much." Keanu shook his head. "You can. And you will. Because it's the least I can do for someone who pours so much effort into making this mall a welcoming place for everyone." A glimmer of tears appeared in the janitor's eyes, and his hands trembled slightly as he clutched the envelope. "Thank you," he managed to say, his words thick with gratitude. Placing a hand on the janitor's shoulder, Keanu offered a gentle nod. "No, my friend. Thank you for everything you do." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving the janitor standing by the fountain, awestruck and deeply moved. Word traveled fast around Everdale Court. Shoppers, store clerks, security guards, and food court attendants alike shared snippets of the day's events. They spoke of how Keanu Reeves had visited the exclusive jewelry store, been belittled, and then turned out to be one of the mall's key investors. They marveled at how he had spoken out against snobbery and injustice without raising his voice or boasting. By evening, conversations shifted in subtle ways. A high-end boutique manager who once eyed customers suspiciously began offering friendlier greetings. A barista at a chic cafe started chatting more warmly with patrons who only bought a small cup of coffee. Even the security personnel found themselves exchanging respectful nods with people they might have once overlooked. It was as if Keanu's quiet stand had awakened something within Everdale Court, a reminder that every person who walked its halls was deserving of basic dignity, no matter what they wore or how much money they spent. Though Mr. Lowen had been dismissed from his position, life continued within the gleaming walls. Josh, the newly appointed assistant manager of Opal Crown Jewels, took on the challenge of retraining staff to approach each visitor with an open mind. He encouraged them to focus on building genuine connections rather than making snap judgments based on someone's appearance. A few days later, a memo circulated around the mall's business offices. Ms. Harland and several board members announced new customer service guidelines, emphasizing inclusivity and respect above all else. They recommended more flexible policies for interactions with walk-in customers, stating firmly that no one was to be turned away or humiliated for any reason. Everdale Court was still a place of luxury, but now, beneath its shimmering surface, a current of humility and warmth flowed. Employees began to care a little more about the stories behind the faces. Shoppers felt more comfortable wandering its corridors, knowing they would be treated with courtesy, whether they were there to purchase a diamond necklace or simply to admire the grand architecture. A week after the events, Keanu Reeves found himself once more at Everdale Court. This time, he walked without hesitation into Opal Crown Jewels. The staff greeted him with genuine smiles. He asked to see a particular piece of jewelry, a delicate pendant that he had eyed during his last visit, and this time, it was brought to him without any mention of credit checks or store policy. Josh, now more confident in his role, carefully explained the craftsmanship behind the pendant, detailing the selection of stones and the subtle artistry that went into its design. Keanu listened attentively, asked a few thoughtful questions, and ultimately made his purchase. Before leaving, he commended Josh and his team for their new approach. It wasn't just about selling jewelry anymore, it was about showing empathy to every person who stepped through the door. As he exited the store, the same older janitor spotted him from across the corridor. He smiled, raised a hand in greeting, and continued scrubbing a stubborn mark on the marble floor with devoted concentration. Keanu looked around at the shoppers passing by, some affluent, some more modestly dressed, and felt a sense of contentment. Everdale Court was no longer just a place of commerce and display, it was gradually becoming a testament to the idea that respect shouldn't hinge on appearances. This story isn't merely about wealth or status, it's about how genuine kindness can bridge the gap between people of all backgrounds. Keanu Reeves could have chosen to retaliate in anger or humiliation when confronted with prejudice. Instead, he spoke out calmly, driving home a crucial lesson: real power isn't always the loud, aggressive force we often imagine. It can be the quiet, unwavering assurance of knowing who you are and what you stand for. We also see how a single act of respect towards someone, like the janitor, can make a profound difference. In recognizing his hard work, Keanu validated the janitor's quiet contributions. By offering a helping hand, he showed that generosity flows from a sense of shared humanity, not from any display of wealth or social standing. In the aftermath of the boardroom confrontation, the atmosphere at Everdale Court changed. Staff became more welcoming, shoppers felt at ease, and a culture of empathy took root where judgment and condescension once thrived. This is the ripple effect of standing up for decency. One act of fairness and kindness can permeate an entire community. When we see something unjust, be it in our workplace, in our neighborhoods, or even in our families, standing firm and speaking truth can shift the entire environment toward understanding and compassion. Keanu Reeves' quiet dignity shows us a powerful example of how to carry ourselves in the face of unwarranted judgment. So, what's the deeper message here? Simply put, don't let appearances fool you. Treat each person with respect, because underneath our outward differences, we all share a common humanity. A gesture of kindness can go farther than you might ever imagine. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone underestimated you based on how you looked or what you wore? Or have you witnessed a moment where kindness shifted the entire mood of a place? Share your story in the comments below. We believe in the power of collective learning. Thank you for watching this video on the Motivation for Success channel. If this story moved you, taught you something, or simply reminded you of the goodness that still exists in the world, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends who could use some inspiration. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an uplifting story. Let's continue making the world a more compassionate place, one act of understanding at a time. Remember, your presence here matters, your story matters, and together, we can help each other find the motivation for success, both in life and in heart. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and until next time, thank you for tuning in.